What's good, Rikin here with another episode of The Mortal Intern, and today let's talk about the real reason you're here, money. On today's episode, we're going to talk about how much a starting analyst at a management consulting firm would make. And on the same token, we'll also talk about how much an intern would make at a management consulting firm. But first, let's jump to the intro. The quick answer is a starting analyst at a management consulting firm is going to make between $75,000 and $85,000. On top of that, you can expect a $10,000 to $15,000 bonus if you stick around for 2 years. If you're starting out as an intern at one of these firms, you can expect to be paid about $30 an hour. Before we go any further, I want to note all these figures came from managementconsulted.com. I'll link to that below. It's a great resource for anyone interested in management consulting. I have no affiliation with them, but it definitely helped me. So let's break these numbers down just a little bit. At first glance, making between 75 and 85 seems like a great starting number. But keep in mind, on top of that, you're working between 55 and 75 hours a week. So if you scale that down, you realize you're making really about $30 an hour, which is pretty impressive still. It's definitely a really strong number. But if you shop around, look at other corporate firms, other Fortune 500 companies, you'll realize that's pretty on par with what they're paying. So yes, management consultants do get paid quite a bit, but you're also working more hours for that. That's just something to keep in mind as you're shopping around for different offers and looking at different industries. That said, I don't think all the benefit lies within the pay. Yes, the pay is definitely very strong, and as a starting undergrad, if you're just graduating after 4 years of college, it's a pretty strong starting figure. But there's a lot of other perks and benefits that don't really get factored into your salary. In this case, I think there's 3 big things to consider. First off is exit opportunities. One of the big perks of working in management consulting is there's a lot of great exit opportunities. And most people say that once they leave consulting, their salary increases by about 150%. So if you're making $100,000 when you leave, you'll probably be making $150,000 in your next job. And it's a really quick way of accelerating that process. So that's just something to keep in mind. If you spend 2, 3, or 4 years in consulting and then jump ship, the second big perk of working management consulting there, I think, is the PTO, or vacation time as you might call it. Most management consulting firms know that it's a pretty stressful job and you're working long hours and long weeks. So they compensate for that by giving you generous paid time off. Even starting out, you'll probably get between 4 and 5 weeks of PTO. On top of that, you'll be getting your regular holidays like Christmas and Thanksgiving. If you're someone who's okay with working long hours and then on vacation likes to really cut loose, maybe this is the perfect balance for you. Outside of consulting and maybe a few startups, it's really hard to find that amount of paid time off. Now, the last big thing to consider when we talk about how much consultants get paid is expenses, or per diems. A lot of consulting firms will cover your expenses while you're traveling from Monday to Thursday. So if you're flying to a client site, your flight's covered, your hotel's covered, but also all your food is covered during that time frame. Some companies give you a per diem where they might just give you $50 or $60 a day and you can spend it as you like. Other companies will give you an expense account where you can buy whatever you'd like, and it just gets covered and reimbursed. It doesn't seem like a big deal, but over the course of a year, if you're traveling 40 weeks a year and only paying for food on the weekends, that's a huge savings that you otherwise would have been spending out of your own pocket. On top of that, while you're traveling and flying to these different places, you're accumulating hotel and airline points, which you can use for your own vacations. Some estimate these perks to be worth about $10,000 a year in total. And that's assuming you use the hotel points and airline points directly. In a lot of cases, you can just alt travel. Alt travel is when, instead of flying home for the weekend, you just fly to a different city, and the firm usually covers that. So if I work in Austin and I'm working in California, instead of flying back to Austin, I could just fly to Chicago and the firm would cover that. If you're someone who travels a lot, this could be a huge benefit outside of just your standard salary. There's your answer to how much a management consultant makes and a few other things to think about as you're considering the compensation you're getting at a management consulting firm versus working for another Fortune 500 company. I hope you guys enjoyed that video. If you did, please go ahead, like, comment, and subscribe. Feel free to drop any other questions, and I'd love to answer them. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next episode of The Mortal Intern.